All right, let's dive in. The discussion kicks off with the idea that Indonesia's leadership role is not just symbolic but essential in reshaping the global order, especially as American exceptionalism seems to be, fading.
Yeah, that's a bold assertion. Indonesia is shown as a counterbalance to the traditional US dominance, right?
Exactly. It's like when you look at Sachs' perspective, he argues that the West, particularly the US, has been overextended with its foreign interference. He
Yep,
points out that because resources have been drained and policies misaligned, now there's a vacuum that Indonesia, with its 700 million people and a staggering $4 trillion economy, could fill.
interesting. And so this isn't just about economics, but about a broader cultural and political transformation too.
Right, absolutely. Sachs dives into how American policy, which once was seen as the archetype of progress, is now being labeled as
Yeah,
delusional. He's quite critical, especially when he talks about rereading the Monroe Doctrine, suggesting that old notions of empire and control are now outdated.
and isn't that discussion also intertwined with topics like the Ukraine war, where the US supposedly has a game plan that's rather self serving?
Exactly. The podcast touches on how that game plan turns out as a form of propaganda to mold public opinion domestically and internationally. Sachs
Right.
implies that these maneuvers are more about maintaining control than securing genuine security worldwide.
That makes you think about the broader impact, doesn't it? If the US is stuck in that mold, there's really no room for honest global leadership.
Yeah, it's like there's this entire pattern of interference dating back decades, if not centuries, where the US assumed its values were the blueprint for the rest of the world. But now other regions, like Southeast Asia, are stepping forward, claiming their narrative.
Exactly. You mentioned Southeast Asia. The podcast highlights this region's potential, right? With a massive population and significant economic power, it really is poised to shift global momentum.
Absolutely. And that's a key thing Sachs underscores. It's a region that's been undernarrated, and with Indonesia leading, it could bring a new form of diplomacy into play. Think of it as a renaissance of sorts where local narratives and local priorities take center stage.
Yeah. Now, shifting gears a bit, does Sachs also address the role of other global players, like China and even Israel?
He does. There's a part where he asserts that China is not a threat in the conventional sense. He's
Okay.
challenging the common narrative that paints China as a looming opponent. Instead, he focuses on how these rivalries serve as a distraction from the real, underlying issues, like the legacy of American policies and the geopolitical designs of groups like the Zionist lobby.
Right. And he even touches upon Netanyahu's so called theater of war, which brings us to a creative yet disturbing visualization of how conflicts are, like, orchestrated to serve domestic and international power plays.
Exactly. It's almost theatrical in nature. It's like every conflict is uh, a stage performance meant to distract or justify further interventions. This idea reinforces why Sachs believes Indonesia's leadership is needed. It symbolizes a move towards genuine multilateralism rather than unilateral or self serving alliances.
Yeah, I get that. But don't you think sometimes it's a bit too idealistic to expect a single country to redefine global discourse?
I mean, that's a valid critique. It's optimistic, sure, but Sachs isn't exactly saying one country will solve everything. Rather, he sees Indonesia as a catalyst, a starting point for a broader shift in how global governance is structured. It's like planting a seed that could inspire a forest of voices from the global south.
That's a neat analogy. So it's more about redefining power structures and how narratives are built, correct?
Yes, exactly. And there's also the point about the public opinion government policy divide. Sachs outlines that there is a deep chasm between what the people believe and what government policies reflect.
Yeah.
This divide fuels misunderstandings and even harsher policies that don't resonate with public sentiment.
Which in turn might lead to more risky geopolitical moves. I mean, if the public is misled, how can we expect genuine peace?
Right on. And speaking of peace, Sachs makes a case for a two-state solution, pointing out that acknowledging the sovereignty of Palestine could be a crucial step towards stability in the Middle East. It's
Definitely.
almost like advocating for multiple regions to reevaluate their historical narratives.
It's interesting how these discussions are interconnected. US foreign policy, Middle Eastern conflicts, and even the economic might of Southeast Asia. They all seem to be part of the same global puzzle, don't they?
Totally. And Sachs weaves these threads together to argue that America's current delusions are fostering instability worldwide.
Yeah,
And he sees Indonesia's potential as a beacon for a more multipolar world, a world where power isn't hoarded by one nation.
I like that vision. But what about other provocative points like Trump's potential influence on India joining RCEP? That's a curveball, isn't it?
It sure is. That part of the conversation is like a nod to how unpredictable international alliances can be. It illustrates that global politics is more fluid than rigid. One leader's moves can dramatically alter the dynamics of regional trade blocs and geopolitical balances.
Yeah, and it reinforces that sometimes the world is like more reactionary than strategic, isn't it?
Precisely. It's like we're living in this era of rapid, sometimes chaotic shifts, where the old rules no longer apply cleanly.
Right.
And that uncertainty is exactly why Sachs champions real indigenous leadership from regions like Indonesia.
All this makes me think about the power of narrative in guiding our geopolitical strategies. If Indonesia can use its narrative to redefine the global conversation, then maybe we'll see more balanced international policies.
Yes, and it's not just about politics, it's economic empowerment, cultural affirmation, and a strategic positioning that challenges the age old dominance of Western narratives.
Exactly.
It's essentially about moving from the periphery to the core of global discourse.
And that's a phenomenal shift. But wouldn't you say that Sachs's argument might oversimplify some of these dynamics? I mean, global politics is rarely that linear.
I see your point, and I do think there's some risk in simplifying. However,
Yeah.
Sachs is more of a provocateur. He wants us to rethink the status quo and consider alternative leadership models. It's a call for serious introspection about how we govern ourselves globally, and not just by defaulting to historical powers.
That's true. And perhaps the nuance here is that while no single nation can resolve all these issues, the leadership of a country like Indonesia represents a shift toward diversification of power and narrative.
Absolutely. It's like setting the stage for a multipolar world where dialogue, collaboration, and regional influence are prioritized over outdated doctrines. Sachs's ideas push us to consider that balanced global governance can arise from unexpected places.
What I love is that it challenges us not to overlook regions that historically were sidelined in global discourse. Southeast Asia, for example, holds a treasure trove of potential stories and solutions.
Right, it's almost like a renaissance waiting to happen. The conversation also touches on how public policies must catch up with the evolving sentiments of people rather than clinging to old
Exactly.
paradigms.
And that brings us full circle, the significance of leadership that listens and adapts to the realities of its time.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Instead of a top down, outdated approach, Sachs is envisioning leadership that is responsive, democratic, and firmly rooted in regional realities.
Right.
It's a refreshing take on global governance.
Absolutely. It's a call to embrace complexity and to empower voices that have historically been underrepresented, which in turn could lead to more stable and inclusive policymaking.
Exactly, and that's the essence. While some might critique Sachs for being a bit overly idealistic, his vision really encourages us to think outside the conventional boxes of power. It's
Yeah.
forward thinking and challenges the persistent inequities in our current system.
In the end, it seems like the conversation opens up a lot of questions about how history, narrative, and economic potential all converge to shape our world. Indonesia's role then becomes not just about leadership, but about redefining what global leadership really means.
Absolutely. And as we keep watching these shifts unfold, it'll be intriguing to see if this new narrative, built on broader, more inclusive leadership, takes hold.
Indeed.
It's a fascinating and, much needed discussion in our time.